US President Trump says allies offer troops for Gaza, but deployment not yet needed. US Vice President Vance announces civil military center to aid Gaza reconstruction. And Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov states Russia's peace terms for Ukraine unchanged since August summit.
And then, of course, we have the host tonight, and I just want to thank you very much. It was a reason we chose Egypt, because you were very helpful, and very, very helpful. Everybody wanted to have this, but we really thought it was appropriate, and you are a great leader. And he's a fantastic man and a fantastic general, by the way. But he's a great president, and I want to thank Egypt and all of your representatives for treating us all so well. Thank you very much.
US President Donald Trump has said allied countries have offered to assemble a large military force and, if necessary, enter Gaza. But he told partners that deployment is not yet warranted. He expressed hope that Hamas will do the right thing, yet he warned that if Hamas fails to comply, it would face a swift, violent and brutal end.
It always seems so natural. I mean, all the media would say that this.
US Vice President J.D. Vance has announced the opening of a civil-military cooperation center to support Gaza's reconstruction, saying current violence need not derail the peace process. He expressed confidence that lasting Israel-Gaza peace is achievable and that implementation of US President Donald Trump's Gaza plan is progressing better than expected. Vance noted coordination with the UN on humanitarian deliveries, warned that Hamas will be eliminated if it refuses to cooperate, said there is no US troops deployment to Gaza, and vowed to prevent Iran acquiring nuclear weapons. US Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff has said the newly established Civil-Military Cooperation Center for Gaza will help address numerous challenges facing the Gaza Strip. He noted that while signing the Gaza Agreement was a major challenge, the implementation phase is even more critical. Witkoff added that the situation on the ground has so far exceeded expectations in terms of progress and coordination. US Presidential Envoy Jared Kushner has said efforts are underway to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza, emphasizing that the post-war phase is of critical importance. He confirmed progress in recovering the bodies of detainees from Gaza and affirmed ongoing work to ensure completion of the second phase of the Gaza Agreement. Kushner stressed that no reconstruction operations will begin in areas still under Hamas control, underscoring Washington's commitment to stability and accountability in Gaza's recovery progress.
Surprisingly strong coordination between the United Nations and Israel, which is something that we've been able to help synthesize.
Qatar's Emir Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani has condemned Israel's continued violations of the Gaza ceasefire, denouncing recent strikes as illegal and inhumane. He labeled Israel's actions, including attacks on a negotiating delegation, as state terrorism and criticized the international community's failure to uphold Palestinian rights. He reiterated Qatar's strong condemnation of all Israeli abuses in Gaza, emphasizing that the blockade has rendered the territory uninhabitable, and called attention to the urgent need for respect of international law and protection of civilians. The World Food Programme has said it has delivered over 538 trucks into Gaza since the ceasefire, though supplies remain far below the daily target of 2,000 tons. The WFP spokesperson, Abir Ateifa, told a Geneva press briefing that only 2 crossings are currently operating, neither of which allows access to the famine-hit north. She stressed the need to open all border points to scale up humanitarian deliveries. For more analysis, we now move to Riham Morsi in our newsroom. To you, Riham.
Thank you so much, Mona. Further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by the Secretary General of the Farabi Center for Political Studies, Dr. Mukhtar Ghabashi. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on Qnews. So firstly, let's start off by asking you, how significant is the establishment of a civil-military cooperation center for Gaza's reconstruction, and what will its main functions be right now?
The issue of reconstructing Gaza is very important, but I think that how we need to implement a ceasefire for real in the Strip, and to have Israel withdraw from the Gaza Strip so that we can implement the ceasefire for real and then start reconstruction in the Gaza Strip. But this is very hard if Israel doesn't withdraw from the Strip, so that we can deliver aid and medicine and food, because around 600 trucks were supposed to be delivered to Gaza or to enter, but around 86 trucks are delivered only, and so this is a very big issue here. They need around 600, and I think that Witkoff and Kushner's visit, and then also the Vance, is to make sure that Netanyahu complies to the ceasefire and to implement it in this phase.
Well, as you said, this is an important step. Now, Vice President J.D. Vance is in Israel, and he spoke about the violence, and it doesn't mean the end towards peace. How realistic is a statement given the current conditions on the ground and how fragile things are?
It is not about force means the end of peace. We need to prevent a force and being violent, because Israel's will is actually concerning. What they are doing and their latest operations. These are concerning, and them striking safe places in the Gaza Strip, even far from the yellow line that they agreed upon. This is a huge issue here. And the number 2 is not allowing the humanitarian trucks to enter, or tightening the entrance and only allowing a small number. And so the USA can actually pressure Israel and have them implement the conditions of the agreement. And I think that this visit was very important when it comes to this.
What about the implications of Trump's warnings that Hamas will, what he said, be eliminated if it does not cooperate for the ceasefire and future negotiations? Is this a real credible threat?
Let me tell you that eradicating Hamas, this is very wide. But it is a American threat, and I think that they want Israel to bow and to comply to the ceasefire. And I think that this statement, I think that this is just for media and not an actual statement and a threat. But the message here is very clear that Hamas is complying to the agreement, and this is what Hamas has said to Cairo and lots of mediators, and they've also told the USA. And we know that Khalil al-Haya is visiting Cairo to have some talks about this. But the bigger problem here is Israel. They are the main problem here, how they will comply and implement all the points of the agreement, and how they can realize that handing over the detainees alive and dead, they need so much for example, bulldozers to get all the detainees back, and this is not available for Hamas right now. And so that Hamas can be able to give back the detainees and to reach an actual ceasefire and a truce where Israel withdraws and then humanitarian aid is allowed.
Well, as you said, sir, one of the issues that the Israelis are using to basically subvert this ceasefire is the excuse of the remains of the detainees in Gaza. Obviously, this is a very difficult task. What practical steps are being taken to ensure that they recover the remains of the detainees, and how does this affect the peace process in general, given the difficult task ahead of trying to get these detainees from under the rubble?
Let me say something that's very important, and a very important title here. Israel have gotten back all their alive detainees, the important ones and the non-important, and here Hamas complied greatly actually to the agreement. Israel have received also lots of the bodies and remaining bodies of their detainees, but Hamas has said that to get back the rest of the bodies, they need they need technology and they need bulldozers so that they can remove the rubble and get them out of it. And Hamas has talked about this, and it was said that there will be some Egyptian, Qatari, Turkish delegation that will help to locate all the bodies, but we still need some technical things to get it. And yeah, as I said, I think that Israel is the main problem here and not Hamas.
So how is the second phase of the Gaza agreement expected to somehow change the conditions for the civilians and humanitarian actors on the ground there?
These working civilians in the humanitarian sector on the ground, in order for them to work comfortably and effectively in Gaza, they need to be allowed full humanitarian aid and to be free to move in the strip, south, north, or in the middle, and for Israel to withdraw from the land that it occupies. And it is known that Israel has control of around 50% of the Gaza Strip, and this is a very large barrier and obstacle for the civilians and for the people working in the humanitarian sector. And so the USA has asked during this phase, if they really want this agreement to hold up, they need to convince Israel that the war is over and that they need to withdraw, and that we need to start an actual reconstruction process to reach peace in the region.
As you said there, sir, that there's a difficult task ahead. Now, what challenges could hinder the reconstruction efforts in the Hamas-controlled areas, and how might this be addressed currently?
Reconstruction in the places that Hamas has control of is no problem, but reconstruction in the places under the government of Israel and the places that they control, this is the real problem. And then to have real reconstruction, we need to decide on who will govern the Gaza Strip during the reconstruction phase. Will it be the council that Trump has proposed, or a technocratic government who will receive the money so that they can spend on the reconstruction process? This is just logic. And the second thing, will they allow the corridors to operate, and then also we will have the bulldozers enter to be able to remove rubble and so on.
The Israelis will make it difficult, I understand that much, sir, but we're out of time. Thank you so much. That was Dr. Mukhtar Ghabashi from Cairo, the Secretary General of Al-Farabi Center for Political Studies. Thank you so much for joining us here on Qnews. And now we go back to you, Mona Musahi, in our studio.
Well, thank you so much, Riham. And back to our bulletin. Gaza's government media office has said that only 986 out of 6,608 trucks have entered the Gaza Strip since the ceasefire took effect. The media office added that the convoys included 14 trucks carrying cooking gas and 28 loaded with diesel fuel for bakeries and generators. It noted that the daily average of incoming trucks does not exceed 89 compared to the 600 trucks required. The office stressed that Gaza is in urgent need of at least 608 trucks per day, including food, medical and relief supplies. The Palestinian cabinet has urged urgent international intervention to halt ongoing settler attacks against Palestinian farmers in the occupied West Bank. It warned that these assaults form part of a broader Israeli plan aimed at undermining Palestinians' resilience and displacing them from their lands. The United Nations has warned of a sharp escalation in settler violence during the current olive harvest season compared to previous years. UN data shows 99 Palestinians injured and extensive damage to farmland and harvesting equipment as a result of settler attacks. Nearly half of these assaults targeted olive harvesters, affecting residents of 27 villages across West Bank governorates. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reported 71 settler attacks on Palestinians and their property within just 1 week. The Israeli government spokesperson has affirmed Israel's commitment to the Gaza ceasefire, emphasizing that any violation by Hamas would be met with firm response. She also criticized recent remarks by the Canadian Prime Minister, urging him to reconsider his call for the arrest of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, describing it as an irresponsible and politically motivated statement.
We're trying to make a deal so that there's no destruction and death.
The Iranian government spokesperson has reaffirmed her country's commitment to peace, stressing that genuine negotiations must be based on mutual respect rather than imposed conditions. Speaking at a press conference following the full expiry of UN Security Council Resolution 2231, she said Tehran has always supported dialogue, emphasizing that talks cannot succeed if one side dictates terms. She noted Iran's readiness to engage with any state acting on the basis of equality and respect, affirming that they always seek peace and will defend their nation's rights. Iran's vice president has reaffirmed that the European Troika's activation of the snapback mechanism is illegal, stressing Tehran's readiness to counter any aggression economically or militarily. He asserted that the government has no concern about managing the national economy, emphasizing strong preparedness across all state institutions. The Iranian vice president also warned that Iran's armed forces stand fully ready to deliver decisive strike should the country face any form of attack. And moving on to Sudan, where Civil Aviation Authority has announced that the gradual reopening of Khartoum International Airport for domestic flights starting tomorrow following completion of technical and operational preparations. The airport recently handled its first commercial flight since the outbreak of war over 2 years ago, marking a key step in restoring normalcy and reconnecting Sudan with the region and world. The United Nations has urged an immediate halt to hostilities in Sudan, calling for the protection of civilians and unimpeded humanitarian access. The UN warned that ongoing violence continued to endanger civilians and trigger new waves of displacement across the country. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that Moscow's conditions for peace in Ukraine remain unchanged since the August summit between President Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump in Alaska. Speaking to reporters, Lavrov rejected Western calls for an immediate end to the war without addressing its root causes, saying such an approach would mean forgetting the origins of the conflict, causes he claimed the Trump administration clearly understand. Lavrov also criticized a CNN report suggesting a planned meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had been postponed, calling it unscrupulous and confirming that Russia had not altered its stance. He emphasized that the timing of the next Trump-Putin summit, potentially in Budapest, was secondary to implementing previously agreed understandings. Authorities in Poland and Romania detained 8 individuals suspected of planning sabotage operations on behalf of Russia. 3 of the arrests are linked to an alleged plan to send parcel bombs to Ukraine, echoing previous incidents in 2024, where explosive packages sent via carriers like the DHL and the DPD detonated in parts of Europe. Romania's Decode agency confirmed that on October 16th, 2 Ukrainian nationals were detained for suspected involvement in sabotage attempts. European security officials have previously accused Russia of orchestrating parcel bomb plots as test runs for potential attacks on cargo flights bound for the US. Moscow has denied the allegations. Ukrainians have expressed skepticism over the possibility of a lasting ceasefire with Russia, despite growing international support for halting the war at current battle lines. The remarks came as European leaders, including those from Britain, France, Germany and the EU, joined Ukraine in backing US President Donald Trump's call for an immediate ceasefire and negotiations based on the existing line of contact. Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are expected to meet in Budapest in the coming weeks, though no date has been confirmed. Hungary, an EU and NATO member, has maintained close ties with Moscow throughout the conflict, while Kiev and its allies demand an immediate halt to fighting. Moscow has previously insisted on Ukraine ceding more territory as a condition for peace talks. Russia's attacks on energy infrastructure has left hundreds of thousands without power in Ukraine's Chernihiv region. The Energy Ministry reported that the Chernihiv city and the province's northern areas lost all electricity supply, with repair work hindered by the threat of continuing drone strikes. The bombardment, which also hit the neighboring Sumy region, marks the latest in Russia's campaign targeting Ukraine's power grid ahead of winter. Poland has cautioned Russian President Vladimir Putin against flying through its airspace en route to a planned summit with US President Donald Trump in Budapest, warning it could be forced to execute an International Criminal Court arrest warrant. Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski said that Poland cannot guarantee an independent court won't order the government to escort such an aircraft down to hand the suspect to The Hague. Earlier, the ICC issued a warrant for Putin in 2023 over alleged war crimes in Ukraine. Sikorski added that Russia is aware of this and will likely choose a different flight route if the meeting proceeded. Demolition crews began tearing down part of the White House East Wing to make way for a new presidential ballroom. Championed by President Donald Trump, heavy machinery was seen dismantling the facade of the East Wing, which has historically housed the First Lady's offices, a theater, and the visitors' entrance used for welcoming foreign dignitaries. Trump confirmed the groundbreaking after media outlets published image of the demolition. The ballroom, expected to cost over $250 million, will be funded by Trump and private donors. The current East Wing was constructed in 1942 under President Franklin D. Roosevelt and includes an underground emergency bunker. While the White House has not commented on the project, Trump has previously voiced frustration with space limitations during state events. French President Emmanuel Macron has said that a referendum remains a possible option to resolve the ongoing pension reform debate, which was suspended last week by Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu to secure broader political support. The reform extending the retirement age to 65 was pushed through Parliament without a vote in 2023 but faced strong opposition. Macron emphasized that the current postponement is neither a repeal nor a suspension, and he welcomed the reopening of discussions involving unions and employers, urging a peaceful approach. France Culture Minister Rachida Dati has defended the Louvre's security system, insisting it did not fail during a dramatic heist in which thieves stole historic Napoleonic jewels over the weekend. Despite concerns over how the burglars used a basket lift to access a window and escape with the artifacts, Dati told lawmakers that an administrative inquiry had been launched alongside a police investigation to ensure full transparency. Calling the theft a wound for all of us, she underscored the symbolic weight of the Louvre, which she described as more than a museum but a showcase for our French culture and shared patrimony. The defense team of former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has requested his immediate release shortly after he was placed in prison. Sarkozy had arrived earlier at La Santé prison to begin serving a 5-year sentence for criminal conspiracy. He is accused of conspiring to gather funds from Libya to finance his 2007 election campaign. Sarkozy becomes the first former French president to be incarcerated incarcerated since Marshal Philippe Pétain. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin. But before we wrap up, here is a recap of the top stories making headlines of this hour. US President Trump says allies offer troops for Gaza, but deployment not yet needed. US Vice President Vance announces civil military center to aid Gaza reconstruction. And Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov states Russia's peace terms for Ukraine unchanged since August summit. For more stories and live updates, follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEGY. From all of us here, thank you for watching and stay tuned for more news and analysis on Qnews. Good night.